You good?
Yep.
All right. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to episode 19 of Something to Scream About.
It's 10:50.
Oh, crap. So, good morning. Let's start that again.
Something to scream about!
Good morning, everybody, and welcome to Something to Scream About. This is episode 19, and we're getting very close to the end of year 2 of the podcast. Only 2 episodes left this year. We're kicking off with an absolute doozy today because we have a wicked guest coming on very soon. I'll let you, Cam, you can introduce that in a bit. But first things first, let's go through...
Where's your notes?
Good question. There they are. There they are. So here's the notes. Now we're more prepared. Intro. That's what we're doing now.
You literally read the
it's like it's an Anchorman, yeah.
It's a teleprompter.
End prompt. Yeah. Okay. Whoops.
Yeah. Well, housekeeping. There's not much at the moment. Besides, we're working on a few tracks. Definitely going to have at least one more song out by the end of the year. So keep an ear out for that. And then next year we'll be drip feeding releases to you all year. So get excited.
Yeah. Very exciting. One thing that we want to talk about today, sort of featuring in this episode a bit, is kind of like what we're doing in terms of releasing music and then figuring out what it takes to release music and the ins and outs of a release from the start, the conception, to when it hits the shelves or the streaming services and you guys as an audience get to listen to it. So, most people think, oh yeah, you write a song and then you just put it out there and people listen and that's it.
It's great. It's great doing that at the start. We did that at the start. The complete beginner level. You just go, all right. Well, if I say I'm in a band and I write music, the first thing people are going to say is, where can I hear it?
Yeah,
having it on YouTube and SoundCloud and all these ones that are for free, you just chuck it up. No worries. Great first step. So.
Yeah, but we've obviously learned and, discovering different things in the industry, you realize that there's a lot more that goes into a release and, a lot more that can go in to help it be successful.
Yeah, there's certain elements that you could do which a little bit of extra effort you put in can really help push the single or the EP or whatever, that bit further that helps your audience maybe take it more seriously, makes you look like you're on a bit of a higher level than just, releasing stuff on YouTube and stuff. And yeah, it's good to pay attention to that stuff and take it a bit more serious because it really does help what would you call it? The aesthetic, as Storm would say, of the band.
Yeah, that's right. So putting out kind of, previously in previous years, you'd have kind of a whole drip feed of content that would lead up to the release. So you might have someone would write an album and then, the album itself is set for release in 6, 8, 9, even sometimes a whole year away in terms of release. Not many people know that, to be honest.
Music's always written a long time before
before it comes out. So then that gives people enough time to prep all of this content that comes out to you in previews or even drip feeding singles off the album that come out, accompanied by video clips, accompanied by all of the content that you see on social media, some photo shoots, interviews with blogs, radio stations. All this press and marketing that goes in is done in the months leading up to the release. And it's done in such a way that it directs the audience or the listeners. It tries to sort of capture everybody, put you through these like pre-save link kind of funnels and getting you to pre-save stuff on your playlists and things. Get people talking about the hype of the release and building up all this excitement so that on the day of release, you get this huge influx of people listening to your song.
Probably helps the algorithm too.
Well, yeah, it does. It boosts the algorithm having so many people that are anticipating this song. In previous years, when audiences have had a slightly longer, what I call shelf life appreciation for music, you'd get bands, teasing a release months in advance before it comes out. Whereas nowadays, because songs and attention spans are so much shorter.
TikTok.
Yeah, exactly. you literally see, and we saw it with the comeback of a few different bands, primarily even with like Travis Barker and Blink-182 coming back. They released music. They said on the Wednesday it was like new music out Friday, and then
Everyone was
we're
like,
back. You know, yeah, and it just sort of sends the world into a spin, and they kind of can ride that wave of momentum into the new music and things like that. So we're seeing it shorter and shorter and shorter in terms of any announcements prior. But that doesn't mean that they didn't go in for months and months of lead up to make sure that this drop and this release went to plan.
There's also a bunch of things you can do now. Well, not you can do, you can always do it, but you know that we've started doing. And if you follow our YouTube channel and stuff, you'll notice that you know we're doing visualizers now. You know, with songs just to give, you know, some sort of theme. I think we'd like to use. We'd like to say like to the song. Like we have you know lyrics and we have the riffs and we have the way the song's written. We like to throw a theme on top of it, and having a visualizer can really help embodiment that scene and theme, and you know visualize what the what the audio is doing, right? So.
Yeah. There is a whole visual side. Well, there's a few sides to every release, but for example, if you've written the song about a certain topic, you want to have a visual representation of that that's relatively accurate. That captures the vibe. It captures the whole landscape of what you're trying to achieve, and even further enhances that for the listener. Whether they're watching on YouTube or they're whatever it is, they've got this even further immersive experience with the visuals, with the, you know, it even comes down to the banners on your socials and your cover art. It all needs to kind of match and have this flowing, as you say, theme.
Yeah,
like running through it.
Yeah, it's a whole bunch of things you know you can do to level up you know the song, from you know visualizers to full blown music videos to you know well what's some other stuff that we've been doing recently besides visualizers.
Well, you know, in the business side of things, you kind of, once you've got a product, you need to kind of write up about it. You need to do a write up. So we go through and say what the single's about, what it means to us, and then with the accompanying visuals, hopefully that comes across. So you do a little write up about the song. You've then got to reach out to a whole bunch of different people, whether it be YouTube content creators or TikTok content creators that can share your stuff, or streamers and things like this, blogs, radio stations, magazines. We're in the process of trying to set up some PR campaigns and sort of outsource a bit of PR work where they can help us do a little bit of that. But we've sort of dived in ourselves initially over the last year or so.
As we always do.
Yeah, true.
We're just like, oh, we'll just do it ourselves. It reminds me of the Scary Movie too. You know, the guy in the wheelchair. He's like, I don't need your help. I can do it myself.
Yeah. I do not need your help.
It's like that. But yeah, man. So there's there's promo stuff and a whole write up, and there's there's visuals, and then there's Google ads, there's YouTube ads, there's Facebook ads, which we wouldn't recommend unless you got a lot of money. Just trying to push it out in what I like to call a 360 direction. So you have multiple sources of, let's say, a river of people, and everyone's in their own boat on their own river, when it may be a streaming platform, or maybe them on the radio, or maybe them at work, or maybe word of mouth through a friend, however it may be. These rivers are different avenues of someone coming across your music, and we want to lead all the rivers into this big lake, and they all connect. So not everyone is going to find you on YouTube, but a proportion will. Some will find you on a radio, some will find you through word of mouth, blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
So, it's just about having your song as this lake and then sending it out in a big 360 and trying to catch as many people with it from different avenues as possible. And, yeah.
I like that analogy. That's cool. It goes without saying that, you obviously need to have confidence in what you're promoting.
Especially when you're putting money into it.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're like, is this worth putting money into?
you have to believe in your product, and
100%.
that comes across in every part of what you're doing with the release as well. So if it's not coming across with this confident, this is who we are and what we're doing kind of attitude, I don't think it lands very well. So yeah, do everything with conviction, making sure you've got a purpose for doing everything. You're not just kind of throwing stuff together randomly just for the sake of having it. Real thought and attention going into why. And then, as you say, just trying to repurpose that content for all these different platforms. And each platform has a different audience and a different context in which you need to share it. So YouTube viewers have a very different way of consuming their content as opposed to people on TikTok or Instagram stories.
Very true.
So you need to be native to the platform that you're using so that the people on there will actually understand your content.
Yeah, you don't just run one ad and spam it across all platforms. You run one ad specific to one platform and then run the same ad, but it's slightly edited or changed to be adapted to that platform. So, we will have, let's say we have a visualizer, which we're doing currently for Alter Ego. We have a visualizer for it, but then we also have in the same visualizer format, we have, something that would be like a post for Facebook. And it's just the snapshot 300 DPI photo or, whatever of it. And, that's like a Facebook post to hype up the song, let's say a week before or something. And then you have, the same visualizer, but instead of it being a 3-minute long one, you might just take 10 seconds of a part of it, and then add some cool effects to it with a transition of a text on screen. And then there you go. Now you got a little 10-second promo clip to chuck on TikTok or YouTube Shorts. And then now you have another avenue. Anything that's going to spark the algorithm to pick it up. Yeah, so same content, but just slightly changed per platform is another cool thing you guys can do with your music.
Yeah. People like to feel like they're, being sort of personally spoken to in a world that's so impersonal on Facebook and things like this. Like I would even go so far as to say, like when I'm jumping on a Instagram story, it's, hey, Instagram, how you doing? Whatever. Like that, even though that's like slightly broad, it's still more personable than having that same thing. Hey guys, our new song's out, and then reposting that on 6 platforms.
Because you see them everywhere, and it's like it just doesn't grab your attention, and you just don't care about it. Like at the end of the day, it's a little bit feels like, why should they give a crap about your music?
Yeah,
it's like
that's really true. And like with your marketing and your say Facebook ads or YouTube ads and things like this, if you've got a video popping up in people's stories, and say you marketed your music to people who love 90s new metal, and then the first thing that you say on your video is, do you love 90s new metal? You know what I mean? Like it's
call
literally
1-800.
Yeah. Call
Wow.
1-800 now. Yeah, like literally having that context of who you're marketing to actually in the video really helps the person feel more specifically targeted, and they go, hang on, how did you know I love 90s new metal? It's like, there you go.
Algorithm, bitch.
Yeah. So jumping on those kinds of techniques to really personalize your content and sort of get it out there.
Yeah, the stuff does matter at the end of the day. And I think once you get past, I just want to have music out there. I just want to play shows. I just want people listening to it. You're like, great, that's a really good thing. Once you knock that out, and you want to get to that next level, these are things that you need to start caring about because they do matter, and they will help your music grow, your audience grow, and it'll be less money as well that you have to outsource to another company to do on your behalf. And the more you can do on your own as a unit, as a group, the better chances. Well, let's say just the more money you can tunnel towards things that you can't physically do, like networking and outreach towards contacts that you don't have. A PR company or something might have those contacts, those radio contacts and stuff that you may not have. So you can funnel your money to a couple very specific things, as opposed to just trying to put $2,000 in and 50% of the work you could have just done on your own.
I like that. That's a
Yeah.
really good point, is streamlining your resources towards the ones that are going to have the most impact. So work out, what can we do ourselves? And I'm all for doing obviously we do everything as much as we can ourselves. But, as you say, we're outsourcing for the things we're not as good at or we can't do, or it's too
Sometimes
much
it's
work.
just who you know. Even.
Well, it is.
You might just be like, I know Johnny from blah, blah, blah.
Yeah.
You're like, all right, here's some money. Go send us some shit.
So kind of don't be scared to try things yourself to kind of streamline stuff, and don't be scared also to reach out if you really need that extra help to make it a pro thing.
If you're listening to this podcast, you're already one step ahead of the curve.
Call
subscribe on YouTube for tutorials.
Subscribe, cool. Well, speaking of visuals,
we have a guest here, which isn't a surprise because we always put them in the title.
Yeah, that's true. So you would have seen this prior.
We always do that. We're always like, we have a guest on.
Yeah,
and then,
special guest.
And we pretend we pretended to reveal, but then in the title it'll be like blah, and it'll just say the person. We're like,
well, do you want to just do a quick intro as to who we're having on, and then we may as well bring him in and go from there.
Yeah. All right. So we're having Third Eye Visuals on today, specifically Benny Boy. Don't know his last name because his last name on Facebook is Third Eye Visuals. I don't want to DDoS him. So yeah, man, I knew this guy from a while ago, and holy crap, he's just blown up in the industry and done so well. And cinematographer, photographer of bands and visual effects artist, and I mean the whole damn industry of metal knows who Third Eye Visuals are. He's done really well for himself. So going to have him on and get some questions firing down his way and see what he says.
Sounds really good. I'm super excited to meet him and jump in. So, we'll jump in. We'll bring him in, and here we go.
Something to scream about!
So we have Ben here with us from Third Eye Visuals. Welcome, Ben. Thanks very much for coming on the podcast, mate.
G'day, guys. Thanks for having me.
Cool, man. Cool. So first of all, bro, for people that haven't heard of you or have been living under a rock.
I was going to say, if you don't know who Third Eye Visuals are, there's something wrong with you.
Yeah, you need to get around this. So just give us a little quick review into yourself and Third Eye Visuals and what you do and who you are, if you can.
Sure. So Third Eye Visuals is a one-man team, and it's just myself. And essentially, I look after a lot of content creation for musicians. That's my specialty. So I do photography, videos, which includes tour videos or music videos, which is the bread and butter. And I also dabble in 3D work, which is visualizers or 3D assets for music videos. So my whole goal is just to create cool content that elevates musicians to look the best they can.
Just talking about that. That's awesome. Yeah, that's great, man. Exactly. So, and you've just come back from touring with Mirrors, is that right?
Yeah, so the boys have had a national tour, and that's been going for a couple of weekends. So we did the first weekend in Melbourne and Hobart, and then Perth and Adelaide. And this weekend coming, we're actually off to Sydney and then do Brisbane as the last show.
That's awesome.
Yeah, wicked. That's very, very cool. What's it like for you as a sort of photographer, visual guy? What's it like touring with a band from your perspective in terms of what roles you have and how working with a band that's sort of the main focus as working part of their team? How does that work for you? How do you find that?
Yeah, so joining a band on tour can involve many things. On a smaller level, like with Mirrors, I'm aware of the hurdles those guys might have because they don't have such a big crew. So whether it's like, yes, I'm a media content creator, but I will help load in, load out, make sure that we're getting to the airport on time or ironing out any issues, since I have the experience of being on the road with the boys. So it goes beyond just being the media guy. But the actual media role of stuff, I want to make sure I capture not just the show and, the guys looking great on stage. I want to capture their personalities as well, because each band has a character in it or someone that the public will love to see more of, rather than them just being on stage doing their thing. So I've always got a camera on me, and whether we're getting lunch or dinner, I'm capturing all those moments, and they're often the best photos too, because a lot of people relate to them a lot more. So yeah, that's on tour. It's almost like a 24/7 job, because whether it's a 5 a.m. wake up call to get to the airport, and you got to catch all their sleepy heads and help them get all the gear in the car. Or, it's, 1 a.m. loadout and it's freezing cold outside, and, we're all struggling together. And then on the other hand, it's a very similar experience with a larger band. It's just I don't have to load in and out boxes of merch or their guitars. So yeah, that's the general gist of it.
Yeah, that's awesome, man. I love the candid shots and stuff. We're always talking about it'd be awesome having someone that's just always there to catch those moments, because there's a lot of funny stuff and
like fly on the wall kind of thing, isn't it? It's just kind of being as if you were sort of following the band around and, as you say, seeing their personalities come out.
I love the idea of capturing personalities and exactly as you said, like when they're on stage, it's that their own personal independence and stuff that's unique to them, as opposed to just I'm a band member playing a song. So that's great.
That's really cool. I didn't realize also how much a part of the team that you become, like you said, helping out with the load in parts and doing things that are really sort of outside your job scope normally. I really like the idea that everyone sort of bands in together and helps each other. Do you find that everyone sort of becomes like a bit of a crew on the road and sort of pitches in and works together in that role and aspect?
Yeah, absolutely. So I think what you'll find is people who have been doing it for many years understand that it isn't, this glamorous thing with hotels every night. So everyone understands the struggle. It's usually the fresh face people who kind of come in and go, "Oh no, I'm just here to take photos." It's like, "Nah, mate, jump on, grab a handle, help us get this into the venue." So, and like, again, as you say, the more hands, the quicker it gets done and the easier it gets done. So there's no point in me rocking up to the airport at 6 a.m. and there's 20 different bags we've got to check in, and me just wandering off and sitting on my phone for 20 minutes whilst everyone does that. I think that's kind of silly.
Yeah, man, for sure.
It's an ethical thing too, and it's great networking. It makes you just generally a good bloke for just wanting to step in there and be a part of it. I'm sure it helps with the morale, and it makes everything go smoother and makes everyone feel like a unit and more as a team. I would totally agree, and I think that's awesome. So,
yeah, 100%,
yeah, that's cool, man.
100%.
With your work, obviously, you've got the show and you've got the lead up and sort of, as you say, going for lunch and things like this, in and out of inside and outside the show. You're constantly filming and capturing all this content. And then I presume there's the other side of it where you have to then take and sift through all this content and then edit and come up with these videos in time for releases and in time for promotional material and things like this and other tours. So how do you juggle the editing side of things as well and deadlines in particular with various projects, and how do you kind of juggle all of that whilst being on the road, or is there more downtime, or that kind of thing?
Yeah, so for this particular tour with Mirrors and sometimes with other bands, we've got a rotating headline slot. So Mirrors will sometimes be main support and then sometimes I'll headline. So if they're the main support for the night and I don't need to photograph the headlining band, since we can't load out of the venue, I'll just go backstage for an hour and sit down and knock over as many photos as I can. So I just get ahead of it, because I just know that we've got that 5 a.m. wake up call and I'm not going to want to edit photos on the airplane or at the airport because I'm just too tired. So I try to get ahead of it as best as I can. In terms of managing other jobs and juggling other jobs, most of them are done on weekends, which is obviously when the gigs are. So if I've got to shoot a music video or anything, funny enough, on this last Mirrors tour, it's been pretty brutal, like flying into Perth and then Adelaide. Then I had to fly into Sydney the next day for a music video shoot, which was on a Monday, which is a rarity.
Yeah.
So some bands make the exception and we shoot during the week. And it's just the hardest part of my job is just managing expectations. So if somebody needs something by a certain time, I go, okay, we can probably do it, 24 hours later, or we can, why don't you try and give them options so they can consider and go, hey, maybe this is a better plan of attack, rather than, them just giving me, this is the only option, we want it now. I go, well, think about it this way. So just managing expectations and giving options is usually the best way to handle all those things when they come crashing in at once.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, time management would be really important, as well as probably having a book future jobs well ahead of time, I would assume as well.
Yeah, particularly the last 12 months, it's been almost planned out that far in advance, which is kind of crazy for freelance creative. I think the biggest thing is, again, just managing those expectations, because I've had bands go, yeah, we want to release in September, and they're emailing me in January, and September rolls around, they still haven't released, and I've been bending over backwards to make it happen.
Yeah.
And so it's funny, just like either I'm stressing or they're stressing, and it never comes to a head.
It's just a
at the
stressful
right time.
industry.
Yeah, and it's
age
just
poorly.
people. Exactly. Again, it's just people going, oh, this is the perfect time to release, so we have to release it now. And it's like, well, maybe it wasn't.
So what? So that's awesome, man. And so let's talk about. So you've done small gigs, you've done quite significantly big gigs as well. So just recently, I saw on your socials you've done work with Parkway Drive. How was that?
Yeah, I've known the Parkway guys for years, and I've toured Australia and Europe with those boys, and yeah, they've come back to me to do some 3D work for their live show and help bring their album to life, because their album art was like a 3D
Yeah, it was.
made asset. And so I helped bring that to life with like a scavenger hunt and billboards and whatever else. That is cool. Those guys are the best to work with, because, again, they're self-managed. So I just have like a weekly meeting. It's like, hey, this is what we're creating. And they're usually insanely stoked. And they go, yeah, we trust you. We don't want to have like too many fingers in the pie or hands in the pie, whatever the saying is. And yeah, it's super easy to work with. And when they don't like something, they go, yeah, that looks shit. And you just go, yep, I agree, probably. Just on the same page. Yeah, it's very easy. It's like working with a couple of mates who are, on your team, and they're honest as well.
Yeah, I find those those kind of characteristics are super important in making a smooth kind of working relationship. Do you find, like, what sort of other things do you find like key points to the more successful people that you work with in the industry? Like, what do you find as sort of some commonalities that stand out as traits that these people have? And reasons why they're so successful at that level, including yourself, anything you've learned, through your own experience?
I think the one thing that I always notice with successful bands I work with, they're very easygoing. Like, one thing I notice with a lot of local bands, or maybe even mid-tier bands, or I've noticed a lot with American bands that I've had to work with, is they can be highly strung, and I think they feel like there's a lot more pressure on them. And that's not to say that these larger bands don't feel the pressure, but the way they communicate with people like myself or other people on their team is, they're very level-headed, and, they don't freak out if something doesn't go wrong. They understand that these things happen. So I think just, keeping calm and cool and being relaxed is a really, really key characteristic to have, particularly from what I've noticed, like with the bands like Parkway or bands like Thy Art Is Murder, even Alpha Wolf, who are getting popular. Everyone's super chill. They understand things can go wrong, but the conversations are very fluid as well. It's like, hey, what about this? What about that? It's not hey, this is the thing that I want to happen. If it doesn't happen, it's considered a failure.
Cool.
Yeah, problem solving skills and being able to react to stuff in real time instead of stressing out. I think that's really, really important. 100%.
Yeah,
I like that, man. That's really cool. And going off kind of like you said, with where being aware that a lot of things can go wrong all the time, and not adding the extra stress of putting stress on each other, like just being cool, stuff can go wrong, like that's all good. Speaking of that kind of stuff, has there been any standout moments where shit's just absolutely hit the fan and like your gear's stuffed up, or
what's a horror story?
you press the wrong button or something, or lost your memory
what's
card?
your worst career? Do you have any worst career moments that you're like, whoa, that was a bad gig or a bad tour or something like that?
Yeah, there's definitely plenty. It's because, like, again, this industry is such a mess. Like, there's egos and there's
Oh, yeah.
expectations, and since it's a creative industry, there's no real way to measure success.
It's subjective as well, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. It's like, oh, was that video good? And you think it's the best thing ever,
And
but
someone
like,
else is like, no.
yeah, exactly. So, I mean, I've lost memory cards with important stuff on them, and that's when I was very first starting out. And I'm like, well, it's over before it's even begun.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, and I've dropped hard drives that I've had to pay thousands of dollars worth to get fixed, and half the footage is still corrupt, which is really soul destroying.
Wow.
I've been on tours where it's a 12-week tour across Europe and America, and 2 weeks into the tour something's gone wrong, and then like the lighting rig is really shit, so you're going to spend the next 12 weeks just taking shit photos. And it all comes to a head, and you're just like, oh, why am I doing this? This is such a waste of time. And yeah, there's plenty of things, but like, it's really, really good because I now understand that those situations aren't super common, and it puts in perspective everything else, like, as it comes along. I was like, oh, you know what? That was a terrible tour. Like, everything can get better and can be more enjoyable.
Yeah, there's always something to pull out from it, I guess.
Yeah. Is that kind of like
Yeah.
what sort of is there a lesson that you learned from any of those particular experiences? Something that really kind of you or it might have been something different where you kind of went, that's really changed my perspective or leveled up my thinking in terms of, how I go about things as a visual or photographer guy. Like, is there any kind of turning point moment where you went, I learned a lot that day? And yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just the one thing that I've taken away from a lot of those failures are um, to have more self-respect for myself. Like, I've been on tours where I've done it purely because it looks good on paper, and then by the end of it, you're burnt out and you want to quit. And it's like, well, if I asked to be paid more, or if I had my expectations in place, this is why it's like super important. Like, I've done tours where they've gone, hey, we want you to live stream, we want you to do this, like 20 different things. I'm like, I should just be taking photos and some videos and not doing like the meet and greet photos and shit like that. Like, that stuff is
Yeah,
just,
totally.
it's just filler, and they're just trying to milk you. So I think a very key takeaway is just like, set your boundaries, and stick up for yourself and understand what you can handle. And that's certainly what I've walked away with, like, after years of touring and putting up with various situations.
That's very cool.
Spot on, man. That's really good. Know your worth. Love it. Learned that in the
Yeah, and
army.
it's very difficult.
You're not wrong.
It's difficult to find it.
Yep. Let's do the opposite. What's your favorite career moment that you've had where you've just sort of took a step back and gone, whoa, like, this is what I've always wanted to do. It's what I've studied. So I'm passionate about it. And then you just have that moment where you've worked with a band or an artist, or you've had a gig or something, and you've gone, this is like where I wanted to be. Like, this is awesome.
Yeah, there's been a few moments, and like even one the other day, I was just like, wow, I can't believe how big this thing became, just out of that classic kind of mentality of like a couple of kids in the garage playing guitar, and then it's like, oh, you're touring the world type deal.
Yeah.
And I wasn't playing the guitar, but I'm just a kid in my room. I was a kid in my room just fiddling around with cameras. But I think I've been on tour with Parkway, as I said, and when I was in Europe, we went to some insane festivals, and Parkway are one of my favorite bands as well. So I'm standing on stage looking at 30 or 40,000 people with my favorite band next to me, and there's pyro going off, and I'm just sitting there. I'm just going, oh shit! Like, I'm gonna get photos of this moment.
Try not to fanboy out.
Yeah, well, it's just I think the fanboy will always be in me because they're good dudes and they're a great band.
That's important. Yeah.
And it is because I'll work always extra hard for those guys. And then the other day I was looking at Alpha Wolf's video for Akudama, and that video kind of changed everything for me in the music video realm. And I'm just like, I can't believe this video is still talked about and people still froth it and people still copy it and rip it off. And I'm like, that's sick, because that's when you know something's probably really, really good.
That's literally what we say all the time. But like, if you do something unique with your sound musically or something, and then other people start copying it, you don't get offended that they're copying it. You go, "Hey, man, it clearly is good and it's working." So that's so cool to hear you say that.
Yeah, I love it. Like one of the boys in Alpha showed me, like a couple of months after it came out, someone in Russia or like Eastern Europe, I think it was a Russian band, had like literally copied it shot for shot, but like did it on a budget that was probably 1/10, and it was so good. And it was so great. I was like, I love that this exists, and they've just tried to copy it to the T. Yeah, it was great.
That's so brilliant, man. That's so cool. What sort of like, you know, you don't have to leak anything in particular, but like, have you got anything you want to talk about that's coming up for you in terms of Third Eye Visuals, or anything you want to sort of push or promote or plug here, or, you know, anything you want to bring?
Yeah, I don't usually have things locked in place to plug, which is funny. I think the last time I did was literally before COVID, and we're just waiting and waiting and waiting for things to come out. But all I'm going to say is that I've got some cool things on the horizon in the music video realm, and if everything plays out well, I think there'll be some of my favorite clips. I'm going to be, you know, incorporating 3D stuff and traditional stuff and be more cinematic. And it's just going to be lots of leveling up. I think in the next 12 months is probably the best way to say it. I've got some goals. I'm going to put my head down and smash them over.
That's awesome, man. Can't wait to see it. If your stuff's already good now, if you're sitting here and saying like it's gonna be better, I can't wait.
Yeah,
I cannot wait. That's awesome, dude.
Very cool to see. And like, you know, we're both big fans of the stuff that you do. So you know, we're pleased to see you pushing on and doing good things. So everyone can find you at Third Eye Visuals on your socials and things like this. Is that right? It's just at Third Eye Visuals. I think that's right.
Yeah, at Third Eye Visuals AU on Instagram. You'll probably see my little red icon. And if you want to check out my website, that's where a lot of my best stuff is. I just kind of put that all together there rather than the Instagram feed, and that's just thirdeyevisuals.com.au.
Perfect. Cool, man. Yeah, well, we'll put all your links and stuff into the show notes and things like that, and try and share it around and stuff, and get our small audience talking about your stuff as well, if we can. So yeah, we're super grateful to have you on and shine a bit of a light on what you do and get a bit of insight into someone that's a little bit different in terms of, like, you know, we focus on the band side of things. So just to get a slightly different perspective on what it takes to go through this professional kind of, you know, I don't know, professional level.
Yeah,
super
sure.
awesome, man.
It's an interesting journey, and you know, the music industry's a funny one, as I said before, and it's funny to be there at the beginning and to see the world with it as well and see the different perspectives.
Yeah, very cool.
Oh yeah, man.
Sweet, bro. Well, we might wrap it up there. Thank you very much for coming on once again, and we'll hopefully chat to you again soon, and hopefully maybe work with you one day.
Yeah, future Distorted Views music video.
Sure thing.
Yeah, sweet as. Cool, man. Well, yeah, take care, and yeah, we'll chat to you again soon.
Thanks, boys. Cheers.
Something to scream about.
So, that was Ben. That was wicked. Super awesome to have him on and hear that perspective, as you're saying, from somebody who's not in a band situation and still up at the level that we all want to be. So
it's cool combining industries as well. You know, we're all in a subgenre of an industry, and then but as a collective, there's all these different ways of bringing different industries together, and I think that's sick.
We may all be individuals, but together we come together to create something.
At 1-800 Distorted Views.
1-800 Distorted Views. No, that was really cool. If you found that informative, be sure to let us know, because it's really helpful in some feedback, you know, from the podcast listeners in terms of what is interesting and where we can take the show, because it's part of this community feel where we're trying to help people out and give access to people or to points of view that can help level up everybody in this kind of industry and learn and share.
It's the whole point of it is we're building that community and like we really mean that. I feel like it's a very generic term these days because every marketing person goes, we're building a community, but we actually
all hold hands and join a community.
We generally are trying to bring everything together, different industries together, different bands, big bands, small bands. We don't care. There's no threshold that you have to meet or quota you have to meet. We're just keen to work together, learn together. Behind the scenes stuff, music tutorials, how we mix, master, produce, whatever it may be. So yeah, we've had a few people also comment in and send us an email or just comment to us on Facebook in our messenger, with ideas for the podcast, with different things. So if you guys have anything you want to hear us talk about, we've talked about ghost stories and UFOs on here. So there ain't nothing.
Nothing's off the table.
Yeah, dude. So just, get involved and yeah.
Sweet. Well, what we have to look forward to is the next episode will be coming out Christmas, New Year time with a year recap. We're just going to go through the year that's been and the podcast episodes and guests and sort of recap that whole thing. That'll be a load of fun. We'll probably have Zachy Boy back on that podcast.
Yep.
And so thanks again to Ben. Thanks for listening. Go share the podcast around. Give us a review, 5 stars only. And we'll see you again next time.
Latest.
Sayonara.